This is Agenda Awani with me, Nailah Huda. And with the ASEAN Summit coming up, all eyes are on Kuala Lumpur as world leaders meet together and discuss all things from trade to wars. But alongside the summit, sideline events shed a light and offer more attention on sectors and industries that are not usually given as much attention. The ASEAN Business and Investment Summit ABIS 2025 highlights, among others, the creative economy. And between 2003 and 2015, just to look at some of the statistics, ASEAN saw an average annual growth of 11% in trade of creative goods, including film production. So at this hour on Agenda Awani, we want to look at the creative industry, how it's grown in the region in the past few years, and what we can expect from the ASEAN Business and Investment Summit, or ABIS 2025 this year. So joining us tonight, we have Tan Sri Nazir Razak, Chairman of ASEAN Business and Advisory Council, ASEAN BAC. We also have Jastina Raja Arshad, Vice President, Head of Astro, and Santharuban Sundaram, CEO of Etika Group of Companies. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight on Agenda Awani. I'd like to start with you, Tan Sri. Just looking at ASEAN economies and where the creative industry fits, because if we're looking at what leaders are talking about, they're always talking about trade, tariffs, the AIs and the EVs. Tech industry obviously gets a lot of attention, but where do you see the creative industry fitting or positioned in the regional economy? Do you believe that creative industries should get just as much attention?
Well, for sure, and that's why we are highlighting it at this year's Business and Investment Summit. It's unprecedented. Never before has it been talked about at such a summit. But I think it's important. One is in terms of the real business side of it. I think one can invest and make good money. I have invested in a couple of movies and made good money, and I think that can be done. Two is the impact is beyond the commercial side of things. I think ASEAN needs to be better at telling its own stories. There's some analysis that showed that there are 140 million books written over the course of history, 140 million, and only 375,000 titles about Southeast Asia, ASEAN. Yeah, and so there's just not enough storytelling about ASEAN. And if you look at the impact, say, K-pop has had on Korea, for instance, it's about the image of the region, and I believe it also translates into development, investment, and so on. So I think we need to look at the creative industry at multi-dimensions, and that's why this year we want to put it there.
I mean, you say this is unprecedented for the ASEAN Business and Investment Summit, ABIS, coming up on 25th October. So what is different this time around? Why this shift in focus?
Well, no, every year at ABIS, ASEAN BUC tries to do better and better. I think under Malaysia's chairmanship, we are really elevating it to a whole new level. If you look at the lineup of speakers and topics, etc., it is going to be a must-attend event. We're going to be discussing about all the key areas that I think will dictate the future of ASEAN. I mean, the broader context is I really believe that the world is changing, a new world order is emerging, and how we act, what we discuss, how we position ourselves is going to be critical for the long term and what sort of position ASEAN has in the new world order. So the timing is so important. So that's why we want to be discussing really important issues like geoeconomics, education. We'll be discussing finance, energy, sustainability, etc. But on top of that, I fundamentally believe there are two areas that are as important, maybe not, the numbers don't look so big, but they are equally important. One is philanthropy. Corporate sector, businesses must do more for society. So that will be discussed. And two is the creative industry. And in this case, we want to zero in on movies and music. You can't discuss so many things. So I think we've got a great panel to be discussing these to particular topics. And I think, you know, as I said, impact beyond the returns, financial returns, but more also in terms of impact on ASEAN storytelling.
I mean, as you said, I've had a look at the program and the lineup is looking quite stacked. I'm sure it must be quite a headache trying to sort of set up the logistics surrounding that. But Jastina, of course, I want to get your thoughts on, you know, your first-hand experience dealing with the creative industry and having seen it grown so much in the past 5 years in Malaysia. But before that, just talking about ABIS and looking at this, the panel that you've got, especially one that's dedicated just to talk about the creative industry. Of course, looking quite stacked. We've got leaders from across the creative industry in Malaysia and, of course, from other neighbouring countries as well. What do you think some of the lessons that we can learn from neighbouring countries that we can expect from this discussion?
I mean, there's so many things that we can actually learn. I mean, that's the whole point of having this panel, to really understand how do we get to go cross borders. Because if you look at taking film, for example, in the individual markets, local films are dominating the #1 spot, overtaking the very popular Hollywood franchises. But on the ASEAN level, ASEAN stage, we've yet to find a footing. So that's why, like this year, when there was this one ASEAN movie, Thai movie, How to Make Millions for Grandma Dies, became a huge phenomenon. Being able to cross borders, we're like, what's the secret? Because it is a drama. It's a drama film that's managed to generate over 50 million USD. It cost 1 million USD to produce. And in Malaysia, drama films don't really generate that much sales. It actually the most that we've actually generated is probably like 12 million. But Grandma Making Millions generated 18 million ringgit.
Grandma literally made millions in a death.
Yeah. So there's so many things for us to learn, as in, like, is it structural barriers? Are we not investing enough confidence or capital into our own stories? Because 1 million USD for a drama film is actually quite expensive. So maybe we need to inject more capital in this kind of genre. So there's a lot of things that we need to learn. So we're very excited to have, like, very exciting 5 voices from the panel. So we have Nelson Mok, who's the CEO of Mockster. He's also the producer and the financier of How to Make Millions for Grandma Dies. So he'll be there. He'll be touching on ASEAN film financing. We also have Angga Sansoko. So he is an award-winning director from Indonesia. He's also a film producer. He recently, Jumbo, the #1 animated film in ASEAN, managed to generate over 10 million admissions in the box office. So that's something he'll bring to the table. He will be bringing production and creative entrepreneurship. We have Panupong Tajapaibol, CEO of Ticket Malin. So he'll be touching on exportability of music across ASEAN. We have Agnes, our very own Agnes Rosario, the Chief Content Officer of Astro, and she will be touching on scaling of ASEAN content as well as protecting the IP, touching on piracy. And we have Santharuban, and then Ruben here, who's joining us today. We'll be talking about brand investor collaborations and giving a perspective in that area. So there's so many things that we can learn from these 5 very different experts from different ecosystems. And for us to address how can we actually scale up and how can we go beyond borders, crossing our countries,
No, that's interesting. And you mentioned a little bit about investment and whether that's the missing piece of the puzzle, right? Whether there needs to be a lot more investment in our local creative capital. Ruben, I do want to get your thoughts on this from a business perspective. How do you see this shift in focus from being just an advertiser to an active investor in the creative capital? I mean, do you see this industry becoming a lot more viable, sustainable? Has it changed much in the past 5 years or so?
Sure. So I'm just going to just maybe reposition what you just said. It is not possible for us to be an investor in this industry. And the reason is very clear. Every single cent that we have, we need to invest into selling beverage, because that is the business that we're in. Now, why I say reposition is, this would be true to any consumer good product company. They would invest into growing their business, right? Having said that, we have anywhere between 5 to 6% of marketing fund allocated to growing the business. Now, the decision here is, do we market creating advertisements that consumers don't want, or channel this fund into movie and content creation, which probably has a much better lifespan. So the investment in this context is a byproduct of that decision. Because no organization that is not directly involved in a film industry is going to say that, hey, I'm going to, because even if they do, it's going to be centered around charity, right? And that's not sustainable. So we need to reposition and relook at the way we function. And so we've taken a position that advertisements are not what consumers want. Content is what they're willing to pay for, right? And content travels a lot faster than product. So if we want to build a business that's large in the ASEAN region primarily, it is important to have an identity built through actually pushing out what's culturally valuable to us.
I mean, this is just what I see from an audience perspective. I mean, when we're seeing commercials and product placements in films from Thailand and Indonesia, it's not direct advertisement, as you say. That's not what the audience want. That's what they want, content, right?
Absolutely.
So how do you see that shift then in Malaysian film?
Okay, so I'm just going to take a few steps back, right? The cost, now, everyone is a content creator, right? So that means the ability to produce content has now just increased in multiple folds, which also means that you share these eyeball share with so many sources, so many different sources, right? So cost to produce commercials, advertisement has actually gone lower. Now, there is of course a few different ways of doing it. Now, the way we've structured how we work is, I give you a simple example. Let's take festivities. It's almost a norm to have a Chinese New Year commercial and a Hari Raya commercial. These I refer to as perishables. It is done as soon as the festivities are over. Now, what we did last year was we sort of accumulated these funds and worked with Astro for a movie that I felt was very meaningful, Abba Say Uncle Mike. Now, as a byproduct of that, Astro has given us 2 commercials. I mean, we still do the same 2 commercials, but we have repositioned our investment. So we still have the basics. So why I wouldn't necessarily call this an investment is that we don't expect a return from the content success. What we require as a base of the business has been satisfied. The success of the content now becomes a bonus. If I'm making any sense.
The ROI is not necessarily as tangible, right?
Precisely. Yeah. And the success of the content now becomes not only a bonus, there's a longevity to it. And there is, what we're doing has got a lot more purpose, as opposed to just putting a 30-second ad that's going to cost as much, telling you to drink one of our products.
No, that's interesting. The business model hasn't exactly changed. It's just little kinks to work on. I mean, how do you see this? I mean, this is just one aspect of the changes that we're seeing a lot in the local filmmaking scene, but just overall, what are the kind of shifts, positive shifts like this that you're seeing in the filmmaking scene locally?
I think what we see now is a change in perception. In the past, film has always been seen as a cultural venture as opposed to a commercial viable one. And so it's great to see now we're getting brands on board, investors on board, because I think in Astro what we have done is we've also changed our framework, our investment model framework. Therefore, everyone in a way shares that creative risk and enjoying the commercial returns of movies. And one thing that you can actually see now, or people are seeing, that films is in a way a long tail, has long tail value, because it doesn't just end at theatrical releases. After that, there's streamings, because streaming giants out there, they want regional content, they're willing to invest in that. And after streaming, we also have merchandising opportunities, licensing. So it's not you funding just a one-off project, it actually is very much scalable IP.
It's interesting you talk about this shift in perception. I do want to get your thoughts on this. I mean, you are, long known as a banker, but as you said, you've had your hand in film production and you've made some money from it. That's what you said yourself. But do you see this shift in perception in how people see and how businesses see filmmaking as a more viable industry?
Well, I think we're trying to promote that. And I think if I look at my experience, and I was, completely new to it, I invested in Experts, for instance, and it's a Malay movie, and then I get told that it is going to be shown in Cambodia, but not in Indonesia. And I can't figure out why. So of course, you know, ASEAN is all about economies of scale. And I keep saying we tell the world we are 700 million people, but we have all these restrictions at our borders, right? And if we bring down those restrictions, then the economics of doing anything changes completely. You know, our movie making is not about 30 million people, it's going to be 700 million people. And it changes how much money, what we can do, the quality we can produce. And that's why talking about every industry at ASEAN level is important. And as I said, this movies is important because it goes beyond the economics. You know, it's really, if we make great movies in ASEAN, we win Oscars from ASEAN, then people will just be that more familiar with our region.
Yeah. So the talent has always been there, right?
Yes.
But what do you think are some of the immediate changes that should be done?
I mean, you can't figure it out. I mean, we have 700 million people, but yet, you know, our singers and our movies are not there at the global stage. We need to figure it out. And part of it is because we're not really 700 million people. We're 10 fragmented markets, right? And we need to bring those borders down.
How do you see that then, trying to connect that or fill that gap? Perhaps one of the ways is trying to better connect creative industries, the creative capital and content that we have with private investors, with capital.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, I've had many discussions with Astro on this, and we also need to look at it from the whole kind of investor management side of the equation. That's one. But two is, you know, just to make the point about ABIS is, we're not just going to be talking about these things, right? I want that at the end of each panel, we come up with very clear recommendations on the way forwards. That's another differentiating factor of this ABIS. And I think after the conversations on movies and music in ASEAN, I really would like to hear Frida, I think, is going to be moderating. I really like her to conclude about what exactly we should recommend to our heads of state, our governments, as to how to improve the whole economics of music and movies for ASEAN.
I mean, Jastina, how do you see issues and you know, surrounding the creative industries being highlighted on not just a national stage but an international stage like ABIS, being discussed and listened to and heard by regional leaders, going on recommendations about how they can create actual policy changes, industrial changes about how the industry can move forward?
I think it's highly important. There needs to be a unified policy framework. I don't think there's one at the moment. Even film grants and incentives is very much for individual markets as opposed to have an ASEAN incentive. So there's a lot of things that needs to be done. There are very high barriers to entry, as what Tan Sri mentioned. Like, it is quite difficult for our films to get into the Indonesian space. To give you some context, Malaysia is actually very welcoming of foreign films. So with a population of over 33 million, we had over 400 foreign films last year. Indonesia, 54.
Right. Is there some protectionist policy there?
Yeah, I mean, they have their policies because if it's a foreign film, they have limited number of halls. Yeah. To also get the best distributors, you know, there's a lot of barriers. So I think that's why ABIS is so important. It's for us to understand and how we can, if we all realize that if we would, because in ASEAN we have so many familiar values. Familiar values, but at the same time also very diverse. Yeah. So imagine a Malaysian story that can be told in 10 different ways. At the same time, that story can also travel. So there's so many things that we can learn, and I'm so glad that ABIS is where you actually see creativity and capital coming together, and hope we get a very win-win situation from here. Yeah.
Yeah. Ruben, what are some of the things that you'd like to share with the panel, talking about how to connect creative and capital, or are you also there to learn from our neighboring countries?
A little bit of both, and I'll just take from what Tan Sri just mentioned just now. While we have 600 to 700 million population in ASEAN, it's 10 different nations. It's so much fragmentation. Like for us, we have a manufacturing facility in Bangi, but it's a lot easier to send products to Sabah Sarawak than to just send it to Sumatra, which is just right across, right? And this is because of fragmentation. So you look at how Korea and Japan has done. there is strength in concentration. These are homogeneous cultures. Therefore, and a simple example, even on Astro, I was surprised at some point, the #1 channel on Astro was Sun TV. Indian population is actually very small, but that's because of concentration. What's happening in the ASEAN region is that we are very fragmented. In Malaysia especially, we're also very, very fragmented. So the pool of money is only that much and it's already fragmented. I guess in order for us to drive content to another level, we probably need to take certain steps, right? One is, example, like what we're doing, if more consumer product company come forward, and again, not to invest, not to support, not to sponsor, but to repurpose. Then it sounds a lot more sustainable. Or alternatively, some decision made at policy making level, right? So for example, you need to have X amount of actors from ASEAN or whatever when you make movies. These then encourages the movie to travel to another market. Right, so something a little bit more strong like that needs to take place in order for the creative industry to, because I view the creative industry as an advertisement to the nation. Now, while we speak about K-pop and Korean movies, if you look at the spillover effect, cosmetics, vehicles, handbags.
Yeah, I've fallen guilty to all of those.
Right, Labubu. I mean, a doll that I can never understand. All these has actually benefited singularly from the fact that the content has actually thrived. So another way of looking at it is, if from a government policy making standpoint, is to identify that this is going to carry some of our other products and culture across ASEAN, it probably would make sense as well.
Do you think your friends in the industry have picked up on this, or do you think you're still sitting on a landmine probably, or a gold mine?
So the thing is, this is not rocket science to me. Like whatever I'm saying is not rocket science. Everybody knows. It's whether they are able to execute it. So now one of these issues in terms of, and I just gave you an example of us working with movie producers, is conventional thinking of many marketers who want to dictate how a storyline runs.
Yeah.
Right. So I always believe that we should stick to our day job. So even when we work with movie producers, we leave the autonomy of the product placement, because the product placement of that 1-2 second is not going to decide whether a brand sells or not. So we leave that autonomy 100% to the directors. What we are focused on is the commercial that comes to us. Right. So that mindset, however, doesn't sit well with most people, and that is the singular barrier I feel today.
I mean, you chuckled a little bit there. Is that rare to come across, that kind of independence and creative
Very
freedom?
rare. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to film, it's very much dependent on how many tickets that we can actually sell. If it's going to be a hard sell of a brand or product, no one's going to purchase our movies. So it's very important that we find the right partner who understands that, yes, at the same time, is how can we subtly bring your message across, but leave the writing to us. Do not dictate. And I've got to find that kind of right partnership.
We are coming to the end, but I do want to, I guess, get your thoughts on this. You know, having discussed all of that and coming to the ABIS, what are some of the key messages that you want to get across with ABIS, with this highlight, not just on the creative industry, but on other sectors like philanthropy, as you said? What message do you want to get across here?
Well, I think the big message from ABIS is this. I'm going to start ABIS by saying that I would propose that we talk today not about how great we've been. We talk about how we should have done better. And how are we going to do much better going forward? So the focus will be looking to the future. That's one. And as I said, it's going to be very action-oriented. I think our chairmanship's been very action-oriented anyway. So every panel, as I said, will conclude with the way forwards. And for instance, in this panel of movies and music, I would love it if we ended up by saying we are going to recommend to the ASEAN governments that movies, storytelling, spillover effects, as Ruben pointed out, is compelling. Yeah, it's so compelling that actually ASEAN needs to pool resources and maybe create an ASEAN creative industry fund, right? So that we have serious money behind making movies and music in ASEAN, and that serious money goes to making them, but also making it easier for them to travel across the region. Right, reduce the fragmentation that is, restraining the growth and development of the region. That is where I would love it if we concluded that way.
Plenty to look forward to at the ASEAN Business and Investment Summit 2025, and great times ahead, exciting times ahead for the local industry, creative industry. A lot of things to look forward to for creatives, with much more trust and freedom given to our local talent. That is all on Agenda Awani tonight. Thank you so much, Tan Sri, Jastina and Ruben, for joining us. And of course, we'll look forward to ABIS 2025. And that is all on Agenda Awani tonight with me, Nailah Huda. We'll catch you another time.